Ask yourself a simple question. Why does the boat hit the iceberg? What were to happen with the Titanic story without the catastrophe? They would have landed in New York, they would have their permanent orgasms for 2-3 weeks. I think the function is to prevent the true catastrophe, which would be the end of their love.
So I think one of the first sort of areas that maybe we can talk about, it's what you might call the stupid obvious question. Why the pervert's guide?
I must admit that Sophie came with this title because it simply sounded good to her. And then, so all I can give you is retroactive rationalizations or whatever, no?
So,
but the obvious one is the one that I think it's even mentioned somewhere, that the idea is that Hollywood cinema is a pervert cinema, but we use here nonetheless the term perversion in a strict theoretical psychoanalytic sense, not just, they are perverts because they do all these horrible things. You know what in psychoanalysis means in a very simple way, just the elementary structure perversion. It's opposed to hysteria, with obsession and neurosis being a subspecies of hysteria. Hysterical position is one of questioning. Hysterical position is, I think it's the really subversive one. Here, I think psychoanalysis is feminist. Because, usually perversion and hysteria are opposed as hard and soft. Not in the sexual, in the sense that hysterical subject just provokes a master, but really wants a master, this half-subversive game, while perverts go to the end. They do it. No, for psychoanalysis, it's exactly the opposite. As already Freud says, nowhere is the unconscious more occluded, inaccessible than in perversion, which runs against our notion where we think, my God, do not perverts precisely, to be vulgar, whatever, eat, cheat, torture themselves, don't they do it all? No. It's the hysterical feminine position which is what? I think the best definition of hysteria is failed interpellation. You know, this Althusserian theory, we are interpellated into subjects in the sense of society tells us what we are. We are what we are by identifying with a certain social symbolic identity. Teacher, master, mother, professor, whatever. And the hysterical question is, of course, that of Juliet from Romeo and Juliet. Am I that name? That is to say, you are saying I am that, mother, woman, whatever, but why am I what you are saying that I am? Is this elementary questioning of my own identity. You love me, why do you love me? What is it in me that makes you love me? What for an object I am? This eternal self-questioning, while a pervert knows, which is why, as already Freud said, a pervert never asks questions. He knows, which is why, incidentally, every good psychoanalyst will tell you, it's practically impossible to psychoanalyze a pervert. Because, you know, to have psychoanalysis, the subject, the patient, has to be intrigued, has to question his identity. No, sorry, I will not get lost, just to finish. So what I want to say is that in this sense, a pervert's game is, I know what you want and I will give you this, what you really want, if you want it or not, I will give it to you. In this sense, I claim, for example, not because of the horrors they did, Stalinist communists are exemplary perverts. Their idea was, we know what people really want, what is really good for the people, and we will do it to them if they want it or not, or whatever. This typical Stalinist identity of I am not a subject, we are just objects, instruments of historical necessity, which is the next thing, Pervert perverts are not masters. A typical pervert, even if he is torturing you, is not trying to prove that he is a master. No, he is just an instrument. There is always, for a pervert, a higher necessity. So, to answer your question, maybe we can justify the title in this way, that Hollywood is, in this sense, a perverse art. They act as if they know what we want. They are telling us how to desire.
What I'm thinking of in here, I like to draw on your thesis. You have it. It's that chapter on Judith Butler in particular subject. Perversion is not subversion. And I'm wondering, I know you haven't seen it, but I'm wondering to what extent do you feel that, are you in the position of the pervert in the film, or is there something happening where you transition that from the position of pervert to analyst in some way?
Listen, if you look at me for 10 seconds, with all my tics and so on, you can see that I'm an exemplary hysteric. No? So there is no danger. I mean, it's even clear in how I use words. You know, I almost cannot say a statement without doubting it and so on. Although I don't like this, because I claim that, no, quite serious. I claim that today's academia are, in this bad sense, if I may put it so, hysterical. In what sense? You know, it's so fashionable today for an academic to do what? It's false modesty which masks an extreme arrogance. Basically, whenever you develop a theory, you say, but you know, maybe I'm right, but I don't really agree with myself. We should develop it together. As if you think that if you all the time signal that, you know, I say this, but it's not really that somehow you are more open, non-dogmatic. And to refer to the above-mentioned lady, Judith Butler, that's in a friendly way. I have personally good relations with her. Theory is another point. That's where I don't agree with her. Did you notice how here she is at the level of style, strictly, postmodern. Like, it's very difficult. It's as if you have to torture her deeply to make her utter a simple statement. Like, if you were to ask her, what is this? Her answer would have been something like, if strategically I endorse the instrumental metaphysical use of language, then maybe we can risk a hypothesis which is historically specific, performatively enacted, that this is a bottle of water, you know, with all this... you know what I mean, no? But I don't like it. This is why I prefer dogma. And we have a... no, wait a minute. I really mean it. As I already developed, I think 2 days ago, I think we don't have enough dogma today. Dogma can be a very good thing. The example, I'm sorry if some of you were there, that I used 2 days ago. Would you, for example, let's take rape. I'm for dogma here. I want to live in a society where it's absolutely dogmatically accepted that you don't do rape. I don't want to live in a society where you have all the time to argue in an open, democratic way. No, but maybe, probably, for the time being, strategically, we shouldn't rape women or whatever, you know. No, you don't. And in the same way, I claim that it's even much more open. It enacts a much greater opening for a dialogue if you brutally state what you think. In this way, you know, you have no way out. You say, here I am, and you expose yourself to criticism, no?
So maybe just going even back to the film, one of the things...
Which one? This one?
This one. That's... I think one of the things that I like that Sophie Fiennes has said about you is that so much of your writing, she feels, is already film-like. Now, is there any... I know you said to me that most of, 80% of all your writing on film is just to explain a point in theory, and maybe 20-25% actual real cinematic
Yeah, not
analysis.
in cinema theory. No, that's the point, yeah. No, here I must be openly critical, yes. I think that only 20-25% of what I write about films is real cinema theory, in the sense of immanent analysis. I can even specify what it is. It's some things, not all, about Hitchcock, what I do with Psycho, some parts that I do with Vertigo, and so on, especially for me, and I'm not a partisan of Bordwell, and we all know what he thinks about me, but in this sense, not in Bordwellian sense, I am a formalist. All materialists are formalists, in the sense that you have to see the message, the ideology, in the form itself. And I think this is Hitchcock at its best. I haven't seen these horrible movies. Do we go into those murders from Psycho and so on? When
with the Arbogast.
Yeah, and all that.
Yeah.
You see, this is the Hitchcock that I like. You have a kind of a terrifying Gnostic theology inscribed into the very form, upward movement, this God's view, but it's a stupid, ignorant God, and then jump to the knife as if God intervenes from his heights directly, and then you can draw a wonderful continuity of this sudden jump upwards, and then subjectivization of this impossible divine position from earlier and later Hitchcock films. For example, you remember that wonderful shot from The Birds, where after there is a fire in Bodega Bay, you get a shot of the entire small town from upwards. You first take it as so-called establishing shot, I think. No, just general information. But then you know what happens? As if from behind the camera, one bird enters, another bird, and within the same shot, what you first took as an objective shot, just an overview, becomes stained by an evil subjectivity. This is the Hitchcock that I like, and what I especially like is when there is a tension between this, as it were, ideology, or let's be more charitable, basic feeling of reality, metaphysical view, whatever, of reality, and the explicit narrative, which is why I don't think, do we deal in the film with shortcuts? I don't think so, no. Yeah, because this is why I like Altman's shortcuts. If you read it in a primitive Marxist way, then of course you can play the usual game. Shortcuts is a portrayal of the alienation of misery of American suburban lives, and so on and so on. It's not, I claim, such a dark film, but where do you find the more optimist aspect of the film? In the form itself, this Spinozian plurality, 9, 10 narrative lines intersecting, all these contingent encounters, sometimes the product is happy, sometimes catastrophe, but the very, as it were, life feeling, ontology of feeling, this wealth of plurality of reality, here it's in a way, in the form itself, the optimist counterpoint to all that existential bullshit or whatever, horror, alienation, and so on and so on. And only when I do this, I do very rarely real cinema analysis. Sometimes with Tarkovsky, sometimes with Kieslowski, sometimes with Hitchcock. Otherwise, I just brutally exploit films to make a point about Hollywood ideology, or sometimes even more brutally to illustrate a general theoretical notion.
This is kind of my point with your work. I think I'm going to hold against that, because I think that when you are doing Tarkovsky, Kieslowski, Hitchcock, Lynch, I think that you're moving beyond just the pure exemplification. So what is it about their films that
is a good point. No, again, it's what I said. It's the form, and it's not only about their films. What interests me is how the very texture of the film tells a story, which is its own story, which is in conflict with the explicit narrative. For example, I think we do it in the new one, Ideology, Pervert's Guide to Titanic. If you saw it, you must know my analysis. And I still think it's a simple analysis. It's still ideological exploitation, not real fiction. But I tend to agree with it. This is, for me, the exemplary case of Hollywood ideology today. Officially, in the sense of the explicit story. Cameron appears to be what, ironically, some people call Hollywood Marxism, you know, all the sympathy with poor lower classes who live their authentic life dancing down there in their cheap cabins, while up there corruption, that evil guy, the fiancé of Billy Zane, who is incidentally the only sympathetic guy that I really like in the film. So that's the official story. But then look at the film more closely and you discover beneath this a much more reactionary myth. The first step is ask yourself a simple question. Why does the boat hit the iceberg? And especially why at that precise moment? Remember, if you saw the movie, when exactly it happens. After the couple makes love, they go up to the deck of the boat, and she, Kate Winslet, tells him, Leonardo DiCaprio, basically she tells him, I will stay with you, I will leave my rich, corrupted, boring, blah, blah, circles, blah, 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 and then boom. Why? I don't think it's simply some ideological punishment, like they violated the sexual prohibition, they had sex without being married, and social prohibition mixing classes, so they have to be punished. I think it's something much more obscene. Imagine what were to happen with the Titanic story without the catastrophe. They would have landed in New York, they would have their permanent orgasms for 2-3 weeks, and then things would get boring, she would start to miss. So I think the function is to prevent the true catastrophe, which would be the end of their love. But that's not all. I think basically Titanic, it's not even a film about love. It's a typical bourgeois story based on, like the first version was something like Rudyard Kipling, Captain's Courageous, about a rich upper-class child who loses his, or in this case her, life energy, gets depressive and so on, and you need contact with authentic lower classes to suck their energy, to revitalize yourself, to reconstruct your ego, and then they can fuck off, they can drop off. This is literally what happens in Titanic. You remember when he sees her naked for the first time, it's not sex. He draws her portrayal. He literally reconstructs her ego. Another thing, do you remember at the end of the film when he, Leonardo DiCaprio, is drowning? Some friends drew my attention, you can check it up, we saw it, I think, in the other film, this incredible paradox. How, when she, Kate Winslet, notices that he is dead, she starts to shout, I will never let you go, I will never let you go. Check it up if you don't believe me. While she's shouting this, with her hands, she's pushing him away. I mean, this is the true meat of the film. Upper class have the right, when they're in a crisis, to use the... Also, lower class, you know, you suck the energy from them, you reconstruct your ego, then fuck off. Another proof of this, listen carefully to the dialogue, not even dialogue, when Leonardo DiCaprio is freezing to death, shaking, he's giving her the final message. Listen to it carefully. It's not what you would expect from a lover. It's a kind of a Western Buddhist psychological advisory. Be true to yourself, live authentically, and that kind of bullshit and so on. It's really, again, you see my point here. Beneath all this Hollywood left, it's an arch-conservative reactionary myth. Exactly the same, I claim, I will not bore you now with in what way holds for Avatar and so on, which is why I'm deeply distrustful about so-called Hollywood left. For example, I really hate movies like All the President's Men. Why? Because they seem to be radical. Oh my God, what country do we live in where even the president himself is corrupted or connected with big business like Pelican Brief and so on? But nonetheless, why do these films make you feel so good? Because the final message is nonetheless, what a great country do we live in where two ordinary guys can overthrow the mightiest man in the world, American. You know, you have always this feel-good dimension.
Then you have the Stone film on Nixon.
That's a better one. Yeah. Yes, that one I like. I think this is. Otherwise, I have a kind of primordial hatred towards Oliver Stone, because in many of his films, at least early films, you find again and again the same Oedipal story. Did you notice, for example, that if you know them, that Platoon is basically retelling of the same story as Wall Street? It's an innocent young boy caught between good and bad evil father. In Platoon, it's the good father is, I think, William Dafoe. How cannot he be when later he will be Jesus Christ? No? The bad father is Tom Berenger, I think, you know. Again, it's Michael Douglas and Charlie Sheen, no, the other. Martin Sheen himself, the real father. It's this boring idea. And did we do this in any of the films? Maybe we did it in this one about Spielberg.
I don't think it's. I'm not sure if it's in.
Yeah, if it's even in this one, namely Spielberg, for me, at least till now, in his earlier films, it's a classical case of this, of how beneath all these variations, you have the same pretty boring fantasy structure, which is why, to shock my friends, but in Israel, they have a sense of humor. They agreed with it. I claim that Jurassic Park and Schindler's List are two versions of the same film. The only point being that Jurassic Park is better. No? And so on. Why? Because, you know, Spielberg's obsession almost is a subject, a boy in search of a good father and discovering a good father. Even one of his late films, War of the Worlds, forget about aliens invading. It's really about Tom Cruise. At the beginning, you remember, he's a bad father, and then through all the film, blah, blah, he asserts himself as a good father. And it goes again and again, Schindler's List. It's basically at the beginning, Schindler is a bad father towards the Jews, just exploiting the Jews. Then he becomes a good father, really taking care of them, and so on and so on. Jurassic Park, it's literally true. It's crucial what happens in Jurassic Park, if you saw it, if you remember it. At the very beginning of the film, you have Sam Neill, who is still a bad father, threatens a boy with a tooth, I think, from a dinosaur, like horror. Then something happens. I think something happens. In the middle of the film, he's reconciled with, when they are on a tree escaping from bad carnivorous dinosaurs, he's reconciled with the children, and you can check it. His teeth, which is the evil object, falls down, the dinosaur teeth, and then dinosaurs approach. They are herbivorous, the good dinosaurs, and so on and so on. It's always, it's pretty, even E.T. You know what is, I think, really E.T.? That's why I hate the movie. Whenever I saw that creature, E.T., my idea is I want to see a good Nazi with boots to squash that E.T., you know.
Like Yoda.
Sorry?
Like Yoda.
Like Yoda, yes. No, sorry, seriously now. I think basically it's a movie about getting a father, reconstructing a family. You remember, it's absolutely crucial that at the beginning of the film, you remember how the family is presented. It's a family without father. Father divorced, then he's in Mexico and so on. So it's a traumatized family, and I think that the only way to read the film consistently is that E.T., it's a kind of a mediator matchmaker. Because remember how all adults, except mother, are presented as evil. Only one scientist is presented as a good one. And at the very end, when finally E.T. goes home, remember the scene. The family is there. Children, mother, and the good scientist already holding her hand and so on. So the family is reconstructed, the nuclear family, and E.T. can go home. He did his job and so on. So this is not yet immanent cinema analysis, but nonetheless, I think
But still in the form. There's something about the form, the structure, even the way in which the Oedipal narrative, the lost father, the father has to come back.
But that's what I find, again, a little bit problematic in Spielberg, which is why, which of his films I appreciate, precisely because it was relatively a failure. It's even a little bit boring, very confusing. Artificial Intelligence, because it's a very weird film. It's not clear what it is about. You cannot fit it into this standard Spielberg scenario, No, seriously, back to Schindler's List. I really don't like the film. You know why not? Because it pretends to be like what is more politically correct than depict horrors of Holocaust. But many of my Jewish friends were appalled by the film, and they told me, and did you notice this, how Jews are treated like children almost in the film? Like at the end, this scene is disgustingly patronizing. You remember when I think that at the end they gather gold and they present him a ring, and then he embraced them all like good father around all the good children, showing gratitude. I really
there's
don't.
something similar, even in the way the Navi in Avatar, even the way in which it's presented, something similar to Spielberg.
It's again another Rudyard Kipling story that you find there, the man who would be a king.
Yeah.
And you know what's the racist idea beneath this progressive story? That a white guy who is total scum among the white people is nonetheless good enough to marry the princess and liberate those people there who obviously are not strong enough to liberate themselves, and so on and so on. I really don't like this type of films. And to shock you, I don't think Sophie wanted to include it. I wanted to. For example, now I will shock you when people tell me, okay, if even this liberal Hollywood is secretly conservative, where then do you find left Hollywood? I have some surprises here for you. Maybe you know them. 24, Jack Bauer, the last season. Wait a minute. I know what it is. I've written a text, Himmler's in Hollywood and so on. But the last 2 seasons are interesting. I like the totally pessimist ending, and don't be afraid, I haven't seen it all. I just saw the last 40 minutes, and then I read on Wikipedia the story. Basically, you have 2 positions. Jack Bauer, this type of somebody has to do the dirty job, torture and so on, and the good Ellison Taylor, more liberal president and so on. Do you notice that at the end you get a total ethical fiasco? Jack Bauer breaks down, he says, no, it's wrong what we were doing, I cannot live with it. The president steps down. It's a very honest portrayal of how within the system that we have, there is no way to be truly ethical, to be naive, that we are in a deadlock here. This is quite enough for me. An honest portrayal of the deadlock, in the sense of no easy way out, is for me much more progressive than this easy, all the president men hope of, if you are a good, honest journalist, you can overthrow the president or whatever.
And this is where I'm going to come in. I think this is your serious film analysis. No, absolutely.
I will prove it to you not. Did you notice how all I said now in the last 5-10 minutes, you can do it without seeing the film. It's enough to have a 2-page synopsis. That would be my counter-argument against myself. You don't need the film to do this.
Okay, so forget the film. One of the things about even you as perverting the cinema, what I've liked recently was your take on Chris Nolan's The New Batman, which, again, at the level of appearances is, it's the terrorist coming in and Occupy Wall Street, coming in and ruining everything. But so just about how...
No. This is what is missing here. I'm so sad we didn't have a couple of months more for me to include Dark Knight Rises, no? The reason you find now the text somewhere on the net, I think, no? Or did they publish it in new...
I think in these times.
In these times, yeah. Okay. What I not like, first, of course, it's basically a conservative liberal film. The message is just imagine what would have happened if Occupy people were to take over. And it's all this full of all these disgusting references to Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. How, this horror at popular rebellion. But what I appreciate is how, nonetheless, the film remains marginally ambiguous. Some of the traces of another dimension remained. For example, the guy who is supposed to be the mega bad guy, Bane. But my God, he does the only genuine ethical act in the film, saving the small girl. I mean, I claim that the relationship of the two of them, that girl, however she's called, the French lady.
Cotillard.
Sorry?
I don't remember the
Marion Cotillard,
yeah.
to talk in human
Yeah.
language.
Yeah.
Yeah. Between her and Bane, it's much more authentic than all Batman's love affairs of all that and so on. So this is what I like. Like, the film tries to lie, but cannot even fully lie. You know, the standard reading of ideology is the opposite one. You pretend to tell the truth, but you lie. But I like much more the opposite, when you have a false film logic, which is a lie, but you cannot totally lie. You have authentic moments and so on, no? So it is an interesting film, although I think by far not the best Nolan. Like we talked before about it, my favorite Nolan really interesting is, for example, Prestige. That's really an interesting film, I claim.
Maybe going back just a little bit to Boardwell formalism. We were talking before the new the BFI list or whatever about Vertigo beating Citizen Kane. Do you think maybe is this perhaps a sign that there was this moment of pure formalism in cinema, and now maybe again there's some kind of subversion coming back to rethink?
Maybe, although yes, I agree with you, of course. My only qualification is that nonetheless there were many weaknesses, fatal flaws in this standard screen from the 70s and so on, cinema theory. The first one is, look, I know the lady, I appreciate her work, Laura Mulvey. But I think her big thesis on visual pleasures, the idea of male gaze objectifying women as one of the basic matrices of Hollywood, where, to cut a long story short, I think it's totally wrong. Not in the sense, in a feminist sense, but that anti-feminism does not function in this direct way. And let me give you another example for this. Let's go to the lowest of the lowest, where you would have expected male patriarchal gaze at its purest. Heterosexual hardcore pornography. It's not at all this. What is your, I am now addressing you, ordinary, frustrated fellow men, too stupid to get real nice women, forced to watch her. With what do you identify
Speak for yourself,
there?
Slavoj.
Sorry?
Speak for yourself, Slavoj.
You don't want to join the group here? No, sorry. No, seriously. Ask yourself a simple question. With what do you identify there? I don't think you identify with the man screwing the lady. That man is pure instrument. Usually it's some poor tattooed sailor or whatever. You don't even see his face. Another thing which gives you a key here. Did you notice how in hardcore pornography this basic narrative cinema rule that the actor, without ruining the illusion, is not allowed to look directly into the camera is broken? The woman, while she is being copulated, does look into the camera at you. So I claim that the gaze is her. She returns the gaze. You don't identify with the guy doing it. You identify with the pure gaze. You want proof that the woman enjoys. She has to prove to you that she enjoys. But to you as an impassive observer, your identification, again, is not that you imagine yourself doing it. You are a pure observer of an enjoying woman. What matters is her pleasure, not the man's pleasure. Which is why, of course, as we all know, all the disgusting sounds have to be made by the woman. And do you know this? Did you notice it? How I think hardcore pornography is a wonderful example because it so strictly codified. Like, did you notice, and there was a study made by Dean McCannell, sociologist of culture from San Francisco, a very weird text he wrote. He observed and analyzed expressions of woman's face while she is copulating in hardcore pornography. And he discovered what everyone knows, that it's strictly codified for expressions. I think it perfectly fits the kind of Habermasian scheme of different types of communication. The first one is the standard one, this ecstasis, no? Like this ecstatic. The second one, already more interesting, is, I call it instrumental reason. You know, this tight lips, like it's hard work, I'm working, you know, this kind of a tension. So. The third one, also codified, it's almost my favorite, is boredom. She's chewing gum, oh, whatever you are doing, I don't really care, and so on. And the fourth one, that I even more prefer, is this type of evil, ironic smile, like, haha, is this all you can do? You know, I know. And it's incredible how this is all totally codified and so on and so on. No, that's for me, again, the depressive lesson of it. But again, going back to this, I didn't lose my thread. It's that, unfortunately, the version of Althusserian theory of Lacanian notion of gaze is so brutally simplified in the early screen theory. Even the notion of suture, which was one of their signatures, is, I think, way too simplified. It's not what Lacanians call suture, and so on and so on.
So do you think, even with Vertigo, going back, do you think that that's a moment perhaps when there can be a return back to the hard theory in film?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. That's the miracle of Vertigo. I really think it's a film which offers endless analysis. Like, how many things you discover again and again. Just let me give you one or two examples. I don't think, do we have them, about that laundry which is there in Vertigo in the films?
I don't think so.
No, okay, you remember, we all know, I hope, Vertigo, which is now officially the greatest film of all times. You remember after Scotty saves Madeleine, we jump to his apartment and you see him sitting at a table. Then the camera, it's slow panning shot. You see the kitchen sink and her underwear is there. And then the door, she exits. So the idea is he brought her home, her half-conscious. Yeah. He undressed her, put her to bed, and he's drying her underwear there. That's what you think that you see. But then do a simple, yes, and the proof of it is that when he talks on the phone, Madeleine disappears then, takes it and disappears, and also all that underwear disappears there. So it's supposed to be her underwear. Do a simple experiment. Put it on freeze when you see that underwear above the kitchen sink, and you will see it's not underwear. It's just towels, pieces of cloth, and so on. And then I read in a text analyzing this. You know what happened? It was Hays Code, still in power, and censors objected to that scene. They said, this is Hollywood's Hays Code, that if what we see there is underwear, then this would have been a proof that he, Scotty, saw her naked while undressing her. This is inadmissible in Hollywood because they are not married. So they said, if you look at it closely, it must not be underwear, but just some abstract, like towel, square, whatever, pieces of cloth. What's the paradox here? The paradox is that just ask yourself, and you will have a kind of ontological proof of the existence of what Lacan calls the big other. The enigma is, whom was the censorship trying to protect? We viewers, we all automatically assume that we see underwear. It's very mysterious. It's as if there is another innocent gaze, which is stupid but sees it all, and that gaze has to be protected in a way. And you find another paradox that I analyze in another film. Sorry, in another book of mine, I think I'm not sure, it's in Organs Without Bodies.
Madeline, the...
Yeah. It's a better. It's, you know, one way to study Hitchcock, that's why he's eternal, would have been to make a list of mistakes. Like, there are a couple of mistakes in description, simple factual mistakes, how theorists describe a scene. And there are systematic mistakes. For example, a French guy called Joe Esterhazy, something like this, in a book which is not very popular, but it's a very good book on Vertigo, draw attention to this. How practically all big interpreters of Vertigo, from Robin Wood to Raymond Durgnat, name them. You remember that shot in the beginning when Scotty in that restaurant, which is now no longer there, Ernest, he sits behind a bar and turns around and sees Madeleine approaching, and then that beautiful profile shot of Madeleine. They all describe this as a subjective point of view shot. Look at it closely, it's not. It's done in a much more elegant way. He looks around at her when she's approaching, and then, as if afraid of overburdening strength of her presence, he looks away. So that profile, it's not so much the real Madeleine, it's more his fantasy of her. And
subjectivizing it.
Yeah. And it's typical how people don't notice this, how they make systematically this mistake. And again, a lot can be done theoretically about this. So again, the wealth of Vertigo is absolutely incredible. And I think also the basic point about identity, it's beautiful. You remember one of the great identity jokes of Marx Brothers, when there are two or three of them. One is that famous one that I quote all the time, Emmanuel, two of them meet, and one says, "You look like Emmanuel Ravelli." The other guy says, "I am Emmanuel Ravelli." The first guy says, "Oh, no wonder then that you look like Emmanuel Ravelli." Isn't this the basic jokes of Vertigo? Judy looks like Madeleine. No wonder she looks like Madeleine, because she is Madeleine, you know. Yeah. And you have, but again, this is a nice paradox, because you know the other Marx Brothers jokes, it's overused, I use it all the time, you know it, but it's beautiful, paradox of identity. You remember that standard Groucho Marx, once he plays a lawyer and says to the court about his client, "Look, my client, he looks like an idiot and acts like an idiot, but this shouldn't deceive you, he is an idiot," you know, like that. It's, again, all these paradoxes of identity, then paradoxes of love. I always claim that Vertigo is a deeply feminist film. In what sense? The love of Scotty is the love of a dead woman. It's not authentic love, it's mortifying love. The only true love is her love, returned love. Not even of Madeleine, of Judy. Okay, who is Madeleine? It's precisely... It's a terrifying portrait of a total deadlock of a woman in love with a man who is in love with her, but in a fetishizing male way which totally mortifies her. No, sorry.
No, so I think maybe one more question. This is now, I know you haven't seen it, but in the second part, one of the things you end with is talking about...
just to tell them what I haven't seen. Look, if you were stupid enough to read, although I don't think it's totally bad book, my book, you mentioned it, Enjoy Your Symptom. Yeah. This is my point of pride. There is a long chapter on Rossellini, 50 pages, detailed analysis of Stromboli and so on. Yeah. I haven't seen not even one of those films. I was up to a point, I was convinced by my own analysis. Oh my God, if all this is true...
Yeah, you can't say this, you're ruining my arguments.
Sorry, okay. Please go on. Yeah.
No. Okay. Yeah. No. So I was going to say that you end by saying cinema is the art of appearance. The real question is cinema capable of really eliciting emotion, which every emotion is a fake, or is it capable of producing anxiety? What do you think?
First, I know what you are referring to, that well-known phrase already by Freud, taken over by Lacan, that anxiety is the only emotion which doesn't cheat. Yeah. like, for example, it's the ABC of psychoanalysis that whenever you feel guilty, especially if you confess guilt, it's a lie. You use this guilt feeling to mask another true guilt or whatever. You can cheat with guilt, with love, whatever emotions, joy, and so on. Anxiety doesn't cheat. I claim, my friend Alain Badiou already developed this idea that there is another, if we can call it emotion, enthusiasm. I would add enthusiasm. Anxiety and enthusiasm also don't cheat. They both, as it were, touch the real. So is cinema able to do it? Yes, absolutely, I claim. Yes, without any problem. Yes, yes. And there are even, how to put it, authentic cinema for me is almost a machine to provoke anxiety. For example, what happens, you see, this is the beauty of Vertigo, another ambiguity. You know the very last shot of Vertigo, after Madeleine jumps down, Scotty overcomes his vertigo, fear, and is able to stand on the edge of the tower looking down. Okay, I ask you a simple question. Is this a happy ending or unhappy ending? 50-50. It's incredible how undecided theorists are. Some people claim it's happy ending. Now, he is cured of her and of vertigo. He can stand there on the blah, blah. Other people claim, more convincingly I claim, that he is a totally ruined man. Why more convincing? Because you know what really happened with him? And many theorists, starting with Robin Wood, I think, got this point, is that by first, I mean Madeleine's suicide, he loses the object of his love. But then what happened at the end, when he discovers that Judy is Madeleine, that he loses the lost object itself in a way. It's something much more horrible. He not only loses the love object, but he learns that retroactively the love object never even existed, as it were. You know, it's something much more terrifying because you can lose an object in a way that you remain even more attached to it. Like, you know, you lose your, like, that's the basic romantic shit, you know. Like, you need a lady. This is the romantic male chauvinism. You need a lady to sing poems to her, no? But that lady can be annoying if she's alive around you. So it's good that the lady dies so that then, this is the best. It was proposed by Klaus Teweleit, the German theorist, way back in the 70s. He proposed, this is his reading of Orpheus, and I totally agree with it. That what really happened in Orpheus, you know the story. Orpheus with Eurydice is going up there to the ground and desperate, he isn't sure if he looks back, no? And that was the condition. He shouldn't have looked at her. She has to return to hell down there. Teweleit's cynical reading is that no, he did it on purpose. While he was going up with her, he started to think, okay, it's nice to have her, but we will have to have babies, all the worries. My God, who will have time to write great poetry and so on and so on? So it's better for me as a poet to get rid of her, so that then I can dedicate my life writing beautiful poems about, so let's look back, bye-bye, nice to know you, now I can write my poems. And then there is even a third. I once met Teweleit, and he agreed with me that there is an even nastier reading. This would be the Wagnerian dream. That this is the worst male chauvinism. What if he, Orpheus, was stupid enough to think it can work? I want to have her. But what if, and that's supposed to be the sublime, ultimate feminine sacrifice, what if she, Eurydice, asked her, okay, he loves me, but if he gets me, I will ruin his career as a poet. Do I have the right to do it? So she started to cough to provoke him to turn around, to sacrifice herself so that, she didn't care for herself. And I mean, this bullshit, you find it all around. For example, basically, this is what Heidegger is telling Hannah Arendt when he dropped her. He's telling her, now I have to write Sein und Zeit, being and time. At such a point, the only thing that when man is supposed to confront heroically the ultimate existential anxiety, the woman has to withdraw graciously and so on. If you know history, you know that Heidegger was slightly cheating here, no? That immediately after dropping Hannah Arendt, he got another student mistress. And what's even nicer, here you can see that Heidegger was qualified to talk about technology. This is really depressing, what I learned from a biography of Heidegger now, that he was copying the same love letters to this new student, just changing the name. So you can already see Heidegger thinking technologically, like in computer, like replace Hannah with Christina print, like he did it fast.
Okay. So I think on that note, we're going to open up to discussion question from
We now pretend that we are in democracy.
We're going to pretend we're in democracy.
Okay.
Okay, so I think, are there microphones set up? Okay. So I think there's hands at the, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't get a chance to see Pervert's Guide to Ideology, but you keep tending towards this. To what extent do you see film as a means of social control? Circus is part of bread and circuses. It takes us to the edge. It allows us to be extreme, and then we go back to our normal, boring lives and do what the powers that be want us to do.
It's a nice question. I agree with you. The only thing is that we should not understand this in a too direct paranoiac way. Like there is some hidden Hollywood committee which makes a plan how to control the people or whatever. It's not, it's a cinema version of that wonderful Marxist, Stalinist myth from the 30s that once a year somewhere between Wall Street and Washington, the real power, 10 people meet and decide everything, But I agree with it, yes. And even more specifically what you said, that the real power of Hollywood is, for me, that it controls us precisely by controlling and regulating our transgressions, our allegedly subversive dreams, and so on and so on. Did I already use it here? Did we use it in Ideology? That clip from Casablanca that I always like.
It wasn't in the film, but...
It wasn't.
The one with the tower.
Yeah, that I already mentioned, I think.
No.
To what extent, how did classical Hollywood function? It was not just that things were prohibited, no sex and so on. It was prohibited, but at the same time, in a coded way, it was signaled. It was possible to say everything. And these codes were sometimes very ridiculous. For example, in Hays Code, Hollywood, how did you... homosexuality and prostitution were prohibited as explicit topics. You know what were the codes? For prostitution was, it's very stupid. If you say this woman comes from New Orleans, it meant, don't ask me why. It meant she's a prostitute. For homosexuality, you find a typical example. For example, how is called that actor who played the murderer in Yeah. You remember in Maltese Falcon, no? Somebody says, oh, what perfume do you wear? And so on. If man uses perfume, it was in Hays Code, the signal. So what I'm trying to tell you is that this is the power of Hollywood. It's not so much, we shouldn't be too fascinated by these explicit prohibitions and so on. But how, in an encoded way, Hollywood also have this subterranean domain of all possible perverse dreams and so on and so on. It's true ideology always needs this obscene supplement. And this is what I'm trying to analyze everywhere. For example, I don't know when, this is why I was deeply educated, I claim, by in the mid-70s, serving the military, the army. I mean, I'm privately a kind of a fascist. I like order, discipline. And I went very glad to serve the army. I thought, finally, there will be order. I can tell you it's not order. It's beneath the surface of order. You have all these obscene rituals combined in the most disgusting way you can imagine. For example, the army was brutally homophobic. If a soldier was discovered to be gay, he was sent home, but before he was sent home, he was usually beaten every night. You know, all these disgusting rituals. Fellow soldiers gather around him in the evening, somebody covers his face, and then others are beating him with a belt. But at the same time, I never was in a community which was to such an extent totally penetrated by homosexual innuendos. For example, in my unit, we didn't say one soldier to another, good morning. We said, I'll smoke yours, meaning fellatio. And we didn't even laugh. It was just the ordinary way, totally codified for saying good morning or whatever. Now, the perversion is, again, how these false homosexual innuendos were sustained by the most brutal gay hatred. And my claim, now we come to my point. It's not that we have military discipline and then there are the subversive underground sexualized games. No, they are not subversive. They are absolutely needed for the military institution to function. It's something of the same order as I'm always fascinated with all those fraternities, sororities, and so on. Sorry, not sororities, sororities. Yeah. Isn't this something like the opposite?
Slip.
Yeah, and all that stuff wasn't even. For example, you remember? How was it called? That camp? I forgot the name in Iraq, not Guantanamo. Abu Ghraib. You remember the photos, no? Yeah. When I first saw the photos, I said, "Wait a minute, is this some kind of off-Broadway theater play and so on?" I think what the American soldiers who guarded the prison staged there was a kind of this obscene underground of American military life itself. You know, I'm always fascinated by these stories. What does it mean to be in the army or any other institution? How you always have some secret obscene rituals. And I read in the same way, for example, although I have deep respect for Christianity, my God, I wrote 3 books praising it in a materialist way, of course, for its emancipatory potential. But, for example, pedophilia, Catholic Church. I claim it's strictly part of the church's identity. It's not, as the church tries to say in my country, in most of Europe, well, it's not church, it's just you have everywhere pedophiliacs. It has nothing to do with us as institution. No, it's exactly, let's call it, the unconscious of the institution itself. And here is the importance of Hollywood, I claim. Again, Hollywood is most conformist precisely when it appears to be subversive in this way of staging some wild dreams and so on and so on.
Yep. So I think we have time for one more question.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
So that then I will be able to say hypocritically, I'm so sad that we cannot stay all the night.
And I'm the bad guy. Okay, so I think
please.
Up there. Okay.
But why are you privileging the right? Why not the left?
It's not me.
It's not you. That's what all opportunists say. No, it's not me. You did. You know,
be quiet, because then I'm going to have the Stalinist executor come over to your house tomorrow night.
Oh, okay, sorry, please.
I have a question. You made a comment on Quentin Melasieux's book, The Necessity of Contingency.
No, the book is After Finitude, no?
It's an essay on the necessity of
that's true. Sorry, this is the subtitle, yes.
And it's a positive comment. But so my question is, it's a question of the relation between, or the question of, is there a relation, and if there is, what is it, between what you do in cinema studies of localizing the real as this sort of kernel, this real beyond real, almost physical maybe, but manifest in in a measurable way, and materialist, speculative materialists' approach to ancestrality and the sort of physical, mathematizable real.
Now, okay, I will try to answer you.
Yeah.
The only problem is that I hope this means something to most of you. Because it's nonetheless, it should mean something to you. Because I think, although I don't agree basically with him, I think that Quentin Meillassoux, après finitude, after finitude, it's one of the few really great, freshly written books, kind of against transcendental tradition, return to realist ontology. But precisely with this ancestrality and so on, I have problems with him. To tell you, if you're interested in Meillassoux, do you know the latest news about him? I mean, it's not a joke, it's real. I know it personally. He renounced now his position and claimed he is now what he calls a correlationist. He changed his position radically now. He claims that he identifies with late Fichte, not Fichte of absolute ego, absolute I, positing reality, but Fichte of an absolute which joins subject, object, and so on. When you now, I will try to give you a more precise answer. It's true, necessity of contingency, but as a Hegelian, and here I had a debate privately with him some time ago, very brief one, where he agreed with me that a much more subversive notion is not the notion of necessity of contingency, that is that contingency is necessary, but contingency of necessity, the opposite one. How? This weird retroactive mechanism of how things are contingent, and then at a certain point, and it's a contingent process, a certain feature establishes itself as universal necessary. You know, to give you an intersubjective example, isn't something like this at work in love? You are not in love, you walk around, blah, blah, then quite by accident, let's say a stupid example, it's winter here, it's ice, you slip down on the street, you twist your leg, you go to emergency, up. There is a lady there, a nurse, another customer, it's love of your lifetime, and automatically, although you rationally know, it's all contingency. You structure all your life as that's what I was waiting for, this, you know. These kind of things which, as it were, retroactively become necessary. Things happen, and once they happen, if they happen, we perceive them as necessary. They become retroactively necessary. This is, for example, how we construct history. Once October Revolution happened, it was perceived as necessary. Now it's again rendered contingent or whatever, and so on and so on. So here, I don't quite buy his version of contingency, but this will be too much a detailed debate. Much more interesting is that when you said that ancestrality, that is to say the problem of so-called fossils. You know, there, maybe this will be of interest to you. I'm trying to make it palpable to most of you. By he I mean Meillassoux, even ironically refers to a wonderful answer of a Darwinian theologist. You must know the story. It's reported also by Stephen Jay Gould in one of his wonderful essays. Namely, already in Darwin's time, there were some theologists who were deeply religious, but at the same time honest enough to admit, wait a minute, Darwin is right, like, okay. So that was their problem, how to bring together the fact that fossils and all that demonstrates that the earth is millions years old, blah, blah, all this, with the fact that if you read literally the Bible, and their idea is you have to read it literally, because God tells the truth literally, our universe was created, the usual number is a little bit over 4,000 years BC. You know, there even is a well-known English joke which wasn't even meant originally as a joke. Some English priest says that it's clear that God created the world 4,000 and something years BC at 9 in the morning, something like this. So, okay, and this guy proposed a wonderful solution. Of course, it's, I think at least, wrong as a biological theory. But I think it describes wonderfully a basic ideological mechanism. The idea is, first, of course, God created world 4,000 and something years BC. It says in the Bible it has to be true. So how then to explain fossils? The idea is God directly created fossils to give us a false opening. You know, like we are back to cinema, like a studio set, where you paint the background to, you know, even if it's in the studio. Like, what about the movie which was, I think, shot even here in Canada, in a studio 300?
Oh, yeah.
No? You know, like it's all in the studio. But you have this false, so that again, God directly created fossils. Okay, everyone knows that this is how ideology works all the time. Each epoch is creating its own fossils, reconstructing its past and so on. But my problem now, I would like to return to what I begin with, answering your question about perversion, about the hysterical questioning of what I am. I claim that Meillassoux in that book is still too much caught in this typical modern Kantian dilemma. Are we caught in our representations, or do we have access to the way things are out there in themselves independently of our mind, outside transcendental correlation, subject-object? I think that the lesson, philosophical lesson, of a hysterical subject is here that the true fossil is not reality out there, like does it, but it's I myself as an object. As a subject, you are inaccessible to yourself as an object. And that's what a hysterical subject knows. A hysterical subject accepts this basic, I cannot know who I am. Whenever I am identified as something, it's never that. You know, this questioning. So I would, again, my answer to Meillassoux would have been that the fossil is here. The fossil is what I am as an impossible object. What others see. You encounter this fossil in love. What is the fundamental, it goes for men and women, fundamental strategy or enigma of love? And this can be very annoying when your partner is asking you this, you know. Tell me, why do you love me? What do you see in me? The basic anxiety even of love is that you know that the other, your lover, sees something in you, but you never can know what is it in you more than yourself which causes love. So again, it's a much more complex debate that I would have to enter here to answer you fully, and the only thing that I can do now, it's a very cheap, it will sound even commercial move, in my big fat book, which weighs a lot. And ironically, the title of this book is Less Than Nothing. It certainly doesn't weigh less than nothing. There is a long chapter precisely on Meillassoux engaging. But what I want to tell you is that it's an ongoing debate between Meillassoux, Alain Badiou, and others. Even the school, the followers of Meillassoux, are now going its own way. Ray Brassier, Graham Harman, and so on. It's an extremely interesting debate. I'm tempted to say it's almost, as far as I can say, the only really interesting philosophical debate emerging maybe in the last 10 years.
Okay. So to end on philosophy, not cinema, but I think we're out of time now. So
unfortunately.
I'm the big bad guy.
Yeah.
But I want to thank Slavoj very much for coming and sitting and for talking to us.
No, I'm grateful to you. I just hope that I will be able to come back here. I already talked with some people here and do a kind of a seminar, a couple of what I mentioned in the brief introduction, you know, a couple of these Hollywood rarities, rare movies. It would be wonderful to do a kind of a seminar, like for a couple of days, every evening a film, and then the debate about a film. It would be. I hope
we'll be happy to have you back.
able to do it. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.